Welcome back to Connected Tech Talks, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite Apple products and whether a newly released version is able to top it. In other words, we're going to be talking about the AirPods and whether or not the AirPods Pro surpass the AirPods in day-to-day use. So like I said, this is going to be somewhat of a review or a comparison between the Generation 1 AirPods that I've had for 2 years and the AirPods Pro, which I've had for about a week now. Sorry for the new setup. I don't know how it's working yet or how it looks to you, but I'm a little bit too tall to stand where I usually do. So this is gonna have to work for you for right now. First off, the price. These were $159 when I purchased them. Now the Generation 2 AirPods are $159 and the wireless charging case version is $200. The AirPods Pro are $249 or $259, something like that. So these are about $100 more expensive than these. And today we're going to be talking about whether or not these are worth that extra $100 for me and whether or not they will be worth it for you. So my main concern when I got the AirPods Pro is that the AirPods, the normal ones, have always fit in my ear very well. They just kind of slip in and they sit there and there's no problems. It's just, it's the experience I've heard a lot of people say and I relate to is that you don't even realize that they're there. You put them in your ears, you get them into a good position, and then you forget about them. With the AirPods Pro, I've never liked devices that have this little silicone tip because I find it to be like, I don't know, it's too big for my ears or it's annoying. You can always notice that it's there. And at first that was a problem. It's like, wow, there's silicone in my ear. But after wearing it, just like the AirPods, and especially due to Apple's transparency mode with the AirPods Pro, you actually can't tell that these are in your ear most of the time. So what I found is that the transparency mode on the AirPods Pro are exactly like the AirPods. So if you're looking for an experience similar to the AirPods, then you would use the transparency mode on the AirPods Pro. Now, what is that experience? That experience is not feeling anything in your ear or feeling very little in your ear and forgetting about it after a few minutes, being able to hear everything around you while still being able to hear things that are playing in your ear. So like you can still hear your music, but you can hear people talking around you, and there's really nothing stopping audio around you from going into your ears as well. So what this means is that you usually have to play your music louder than you might want to drown out everything around you. That is the same case with transparency mode for the AirPods Pro. However, there are pros to this situation, to this scene, because obviously Apple created transparency mode, which allows audio to pass through the microphone on the AirPods Pro and then get played through the speaker of the AirPods Pro into your ear. Why would they go through the work to do that if there were no pros? There are pros to that situation. It allows you to be listening to music and still be aware of what's going on around you. If I'm in a classroom and I need to be able to know when the teacher is trying to get the class's attention while we're working, it's very nice to have transparency mode or the AirPods, which allow me to hear my music but still listen around it, but still hear everything around me. However, the AirPods Pro still have two other modes. They have the off mode, which is nothing special. It's just what the AirPods Pro would normally do without interference of software. So the silicone tip itself in the AirPods Pro is going to stop audio from getting into your ear better than the plastic tip of the normal AirPods. So when you have the AirPods Pro in off mode, you'll be able to hear your music and there's nothing stopping audio from coming into your ear on that side except for the silicone tip. So you're not going to be able to hear things as well as if you had transparency mode on. But there's also the third mode that everyone knows about or everyone cares about. So that's when the microphone takes audio in and plays a counter wave sound so that the sound waves around you get canceled out and you can't actually hear what's going on around you. So there's three different modes and there's a certain way that I think about it. So there's off. The AirPod is not trying specifically to let audio in or to keep audio out, but some audio is kept out because of the silicone tips. There's transparency mode where the AirPod is trying to let audio in, and there's active noise cancellation where the AirPod is trying to keep audio out. Compare that to the AirPod where you have very little choice and you have to kind of be in that transparency mode where everything around you is getting in. So I think that's a very big pro of the AirPods Pro, being able to choose how much audio is let into your ear. For instance, like I said, transparency mode works well in a classroom, but if I'm on the bus, the active noise cancellation works perfectly because it's able to perfectly cancel out the drone of the bus engine, so I don't have to hear that, and I can play my music at a lower sound than I would have to with the AirPods. And that's something I really appreciate about the AirPods Pro, is not having to like blast my music into my ears to be able to hear it. I feel like it's safer for my eardrums to play music at a lower level, and that's able to happen because of the noise cancellation. Okay, so some visual differences between the AirPods and the AirPods Pro. As you can tell, these are what you're going to see in most people's ears if they have wireless headphones. The AirPods are everywhere now. And when AirPods first came out, everyone was so concerned about how long they look. Wow, they look so bad. They look terrible. It looks like a toothbrush hanging out of your mouth, whatever. Out of your mouth, out of your nose, out of your ears. Jeez, it must be 10 o'clock in the morning, because it is. But now everyone is used to this look in people's ears. Well, the AirPods Pro come along and most of the device is in your ear instead of out of your ear. So the head of the AirPod is a lot smaller than the head of the AirPod Pro, but the stem of the AirPod Pro is a lot shorter than the stem of the AirPod. Like I said, I didn't think I would be a fan of the silicone tip in the AirPods Pro, but the fact that we can change the size of it, I have the smalls in right now, the small size, and the fact that the AirPods Pro actually are very good at equalizing the air pressure in your ear, so it doesn't feel like there's something in your ears. Even with the small ear tip and the fact that the air pressure is equalized, I can still feel more in my ear with the AirPods Pro than the AirPod. The AirPod just feels like I'm not wearing anything. I am consciously aware most times of the fact that I'm wearing AirPods Pro, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Another thing that's important to me with the AirPods is noise control or media control. Because of the fact that I'm a runner, I like to take my Apple Watch and my AirPods running, so I don't like to take my phone, which means I need a quick way to control the media. The AirPods Pro have this little flat side where you can squeeze, and it sounds like something's clicking in your ear. The AirPods Pro have a double tap feature, so there's nothing to sense force like on the AirPods Pro. Right here it senses the force of your finger. On the AirPods Pro you have to tap twice, and it interprets that tapping twice with an accelerometer, I think. That has never worked for me. It never works well. So if I want to pause my music to talk to someone and I do like a double tap, it never works. Well, it works, but like only half the time or something. And it gets really annoying. The AirPods Pro, since it's more like force-based and it's not based on the shaking of the AirPod when you tap it, it's much more reliable, and it always works when I tap or when I squeeze the AirPod. It's a lot more natural to just reach up to your ear and squeeze than it is to tap, I think. And although that tapping was a very clever idea for Apple, the squeezing works a lot better. A fantastic thing about the AirPods Pro is that when you squeeze and hold the force-sensitive part of the AirPod, it actually switches what type of audio mode you're in. So one squeeze will play pause, and a hold will transition you between off and transparency mode and noise cancellation mode. This is amazing. If I'm on the bus and someone tries to get my attention for some reason, I can squeeze the AirPod and it goes into transparency mode and I can hear everything they're saying. So another pro of the pros is media control, in my opinion. So far we have the noise controls as a pro of the AirPods Pro. I think the design is a pro. We also have the audio modes like transparency mode and noise cancellation is obviously a pro of the pros, since those are not present on the AirPods. Another pro of the pros is sweat resistance and water resistance. So I've taken these on runs and there's never been any damage to them or anything, but it's nice to know that the AirPods Pro are actually built to be resistant to water and sweat. So we have talked a lot about the pros of the AirPod Pros. Let's talk about some of the pros of the AirPods. The normal AirPods case is 100 times better than the AirPods Pro case. It's very compact, and the AirPods just slip in here exactly how you would expect. It's very, it's very easy to flip this case open, take an AirPod out, put them back in, flip it close with one hand. With the AirPods Pro, I often have to use two hands, and the AirPods Pro don't really sit in this case like you would expect they would. It's even a little bit more difficult to get them out of the case. They kind of sit in here like backwards compared to the AirPods, and it's often hard to tell how to put them back in, and sometimes I put them in the wrong side on accident. So of course this is attributed to the new design of the AirPods Pro, but that is just something I would like to mention about the AirPods is how convenient they are to use. Another pro that I mentioned earlier about the normal AirPods is how magical they are. You will, I mean, it is crazy. Like, I didn't use the normal AirPods for a week while I tested out the AirPods Pro. I put these in my ears and it was crazy. Like, you do not feel a thing while you were wearing them. If you can't feel them in your ears, you might think that they're less secure. They're not any less secure. I can't get them to fall out of my ears. So here's the biggest pro of the AirPods compared to the AirPods Pro that is actually one thing that makes me hesitant to love the AirPods Pro: the battery life. So really, even though the AirPods are much bigger than the AirPods Pro, when the AirPods Pro are in off mode, not in noise cancellation or transparency, they have exactly the same battery life in my experience. However, if you want to get the same experience with your AirPods Pro as you would your AirPods, so often I'll be sitting somewhere and I'll have my AirPods in but nothing playing. To be frank, I do this because I forget they're in my ears, but it doesn't matter because I can hear everything around me like we discussed before. And since they're not playing, they're not wasting any battery just being in your ears. However, if you have the AirPods Pro in transparency mode and you forget about the fact that they are in your ears, they are actually wasting battery life even if they are not playing anything because they're using battery to do the transparency mode thing where they take in audio and pass it through the speakers of the headphones. So even if it seems like your AirPods Pro are off, they're actually using battery life. So I found myself like, I'll have my AirPods Pro in, I'll go to play music in them, it'll suddenly give me the low power sound, so I'll have to put them in the case and wait for them to charge up again. I've had the AirPods for 2 years, and they still have a better battery experience than the AirPods Pro. So you might want to take that into account when you're considering how much better the AirPods battery is compared to the AirPods Pro in day-to-day use. Even if you can get them to have the same battery in certain situations like having these in off mode. Because I just have not found myself using off mode that much. I always use transparency mode or noise cancellation. Being Generation 1, my AirPods do not have a wireless charging case. The AirPods Pro automatically come with a wireless charging case, so that is part of what you're paying for with the AirPods Pro. In terms of the usefulness of the wireless charging, I pretty much exclusively charge my phone wirelessly, so I already have a wireless charger out. So when I'm not charging my phone, it's very convenient to just plop down my AirPods and get a few extra minutes of charge. The really nice thing about both the AirPods and the AirPods Pro is that the case and the headphones themselves charge really fast. So it's actually kind of convenient that they wirelessly charge, although I wouldn't consider that a very big priority for me. One thing I believe Samsung is doing now is the ability to charge your headphones wirelessly with your phone, and people are talking about how useless that is. Like I said, the AirPods Pro tend to drain battery in my ears even when they're not playing music. It would be nice to be able to charge this case on my phone just for a few minutes to get an hour more of battery. Unfortunately, using the AirPods Pro in transparency mode or noise cancellation mode, the two most common modes that I've had myself using, I almost never have them in off mode. The battery of the earbuds do drain a lot faster, unfortunately. So, we've gone over a lot of pros of the AirPods and a lot of pros of the AirPods Pro. The last thing I want to talk about is whether or not the pros are really pro. I don't think anyone believes that the AirPods Pro are for audio professionals who are editing audio and stuff on their phone. That's not what Apple means by pro. People who have used the Generation 1 AirPods for 2 years constantly, they're in my ears all the time, who are, while not a professional, are a pro user because they use them so much and love them so much. So while I am not an audio professional, I would consider myself a pro user for AirPods, and I am all aboard Team AirPod Pros. Obviously, the AirPods nor the AirPods Pro are known for their sound quality. The sound quality of the AirPods Pro is not something that I would upgrade from the AirPods to the AirPods Pro from. However, going back to the AirPods from the Pros makes me notice how flat the AirPods sound and how much more detail the AirPods Pro have. So, I said that I'm all aboard Team AirPod Pro. I think that the pros of the pros outweigh the pros of the normal ones. The worst thing so far, like I said, is the battery. In crowded situations, I never have to worry about playing my music too loud in my ears. Unfortunately, these things are really small. Technology is, of course, limited at some point. These do not cancel out all audio around you, but it does a good enough job so that you don't have to blare your music in your ears, if that makes sense. When I first got the AirPods Pro, I was hesitant as to whether or not I was going to like them, but at this point I have decided that while there are some things I really like about the AirPods, I like the AirPods Pro a lot more. So, should you update? The biggest thing, in my opinion, is whether or not you consider yourself a pro AirPods user. These things are going to cost you $100 more than just a normal pair of AirPods. So you have to decide for yourself whether you consider yourself a pro AirPods user. Do you use them constantly? Are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of battery for the quality of life improvements that the AirPods Pro have, such as the sweat resistance, the smaller design, the audio control, and of course the biggest improvement is the fact that you can drown out the audio around you. So are the pros of the AirPods Pro compared to the pros of the AirPods worth it for me? Yes, the AirPods Pro definitely top the AirPods for me. For you, it is obviously going to be different depending on what you value and how much of a pro AirPods user you are. Tell me your thoughts and which ones you prefer if you have both in the comments below, and as always, stay connected.